Hey there, I hope you're doing well. My name's Jake. I'm a big fan of making music, and one of the best pieces of advice I ever got about making music was to make making music as easy as possible. What does that mean? Well, it's a variety of things. It's things like keeping your instruments within arm's reach at all times. It may mean that you have a patch bay or an audio interface where everything has its own designated channel. But at the heart of every song is an audio session. So if you're making music, it's a good idea to have a template session. A template session is just a version of your audio software that's set up with all of your preferences. It's got tracks for all of the things you typically would add to your songs. Those tracks are color-coded and named the way that you would want them to be named, organized top to bottom in a way that makes sense to you. And all this really lets you do is skip all of those boring steps at the beginning so that you just open up your template, you save a copy, and you can get right to work on your new idea. Let me show you how I set this up. Alright, so I'm set up here at my computer, and I'm just going to show you how I would build a template if I didn't already have one. I use Logic Pro for all of my audio work. You can definitely use any audio editing software that you want. But just to show you this, I'm going to show you how to do it in Logic. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Logic and set up a new file. Alright, so I'm set up here in Logic now, and the first thing I did was I added an audio track with input 4. That's the input that this microphone is connected to. This way you can hear me, but also it'll be good to have in the template. I mean, obviously I'm going to want to record some vocals anytime I jump into a new music project, so I'll just call this vocals. And the next thing I'll add is a software instrument. So we have some options here, but it defaults to an electric piano, and I really do love that sound. Here's what that sounds like. Just a really phenomenal sound that I know I'm going to want to use, so I'll just rename this electric piano. And then if I hit Command D, it'll duplicate the track. Let's call this organ. I'm going to set myself up with an organ. And so if I go over to this window here on the left, I'll be able to pick. I really like this bebop organ sound. Just really fun, something that I'm going to use a lot, when I'm working on a new idea. So definitely glad to have that in my template. I'm also going to duplicate it again, call this one drums. And we'll pop over here and grab a drum kit. It's a good idea to have some sort of drum kit or drum machine or something like that in the session, just so that, when inspiration strikes, I can get in there, program a beat. But it actually will probably be nice to have at least something in there as sort of a default. So I'm just going to create a little loop here, a little 2-bar loop. And I'll use my MIDI controller to get something plugged in quickly here. Now, as you probably heard, that wasn't the cleanest playing. There was definitely some friction against the metronome, but no bother. If I just select this clip and I hit E, it's going to open up this edit window here. I'm going to hit Y just to collapse that on the side, just so you can see a little bit more of what's going on in the edit window. If I just hit Command A, it's going to select all of this MIDI information. These are the drums that I just played. On this drop down, I'm going to select the grid. I'll go 8th note, 8th note, and I think that did it. And I'm noticing that it looks like we lost the kick drum information, so I'll just play that again. Let me slow this down a little before I give that a go. And again, I can just select all, hit this Q to quantize it, and we are good to go there. So yeah, as you can see, now I have some drums in there. Again, the beat's probably going to change as I work on new songs. but just a starting spot, something simple that I can work with. The last thing I'm going to want to do as far as adding tracks to this is to set myself up to record bass and to record guitar. I have a DI, which is a box that lets me record the dry signal from a guitar or from a bass. And this DI is plugged into channel 3. So I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to go audio, input 3. And I'm just going to call this bass. Okay, there we go. I'm going to duplicate this because I'm also going to want to take a DI anytime I record guitar. Call this E guitar DI. But in addition to the DI, when I'm recording guitar, I want to use inputs 1 and 2 to record the stereo output of my pedal board. So I'm just going to add, as you can see, it says inputs 1 and 2. I'm going to call this E guitar, E guitar FX. Doesn't really matter. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll take these two E guitar tracks, and if I hit Shift Command D, it's going to give me this window. Now what I get to do on this window is combine the two tracks into a summing stack. And all a summing stack is it's just like a collapsible sort of group of tracks. I'll show you what I mean. When I hit create, now I have this summing stack, and you can see that all of these are kind of highlighted together. If I hit this, all of a sudden it's collapsed. And I don't have to look at all of the individual tracks. I can just work with this to set the level if I want to change the overall level, or record enable all of those tracks or whatever. But if I want to get granular and get in there, I can just open up this stack, select what I need, adjust it independently. I'm going to call this E guitar. All right, so that's really all I'm going to need as far as adding any MIDI tracks or any audio tracks to a template. The last thing I'm going to do before I save this off is I'm going to actually go and color code everything. So if I select this vocal track and then I hit Option C, it's going to give me this color palette. I like to have my vocals purple, maybe this purple. It doesn't really matter what color you select. I just like to color code stuff just because, down the line, I'm going to turn this template into a session that maybe has 40 tracks. And I'm going to do that by duplicating these tracks. So keeping in mind that it's going to get complicated, I want to just have the colors already sort of pre-programmed into my template. Hit Option C again, and with these two piano tracks, I'm going to make them, blue. E guitar, to me, that always feels a little green. Bass will go red. And drums, we can go brown. And you can see that it just changed the clip color. So as this session gets more complicated, and I've recorded some guitar, and I've recorded some keys, I've recorded 3 or 4 layers of vocals, everything's going to be color coded, and I'll be able to see that easily from this window. If I hit X, you'll also see that these colors are now reflected in the mix window. Now these tracks, you're probably thinking, all right, well, what are these? We don't actually see those in this window. These are just the auxiliary tracks that are associated with some of these templates that I pulled up for the keys and for the drums. An auxiliary track is just basically saying, here's a track where you can send signals from other tracks, add some effects, maybe treat them as like a group in your mixing process. And then you can send the output of that to your stereo output. And so these are going to be, a pretty integral part of the tracking process. So I'll color code these as well. Again, just Option C, it's going to open up this window. And I like to make them this color. That's just me. And then lastly, you have your stereo output and your master, and I'll just make those this color. And that way everything is just nice and color coded here. For whatever reason, this one didn't take. So I'll just select that again. And I think that just about does it for this template. So I'm going to just hit save. I'm going to just drop this on my desktop, and I'll just call it #template. The hashtag just means that, when I'm opening up Finder and I've got a list of files, the template's going to be right at the top. So overall, not a very complicated process. Didn't even take that long. But just think about some of the little steps we took along the way to make this session, unique to my needs here. We added some tracks with different inputs and outputs. We renamed them. We organized them top to bottom in the order that makes sense to me. We color coded them. We added a little bit of a drum loop just so that we have something to work from. And really all we're doing is bypassing all of those steps the next time I want to go work on a session. I'll just open up this template and all of that stuff is right there ready to go. So if I want to just start with adding some electric piano, I just do this. You know, maybe I want to actually start with doing organ. Fine, all good. And, you know, if I wanted to jump in right away and record bass, I've got that set up right here. If I wanted to record guitar, I've got this set up right here. So I've really just bypassed all of the boring steps that are at the beginning of the process. And the beauty of that is I can get into making music ASAP. That's really what this is all about. At the end of the day, I'm making it easier for me to get into the thing that I love doing. And there you have it. Setting up a template session isn't that hard, but it's going to save you a lot of steps every time you dive into a brand new project. If this gave you any ideas for how you could set up your template, I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, a like would go a long way. And if you've got a friend who's just getting into audio engineering, send them a link to this video. Maybe it'll help them get in the groove. That's it for this one, and until next time, let's go make some music.